Hey guys, welcome to True Champion Gaming. I'm Caban, and today I'm actually going to be covering Hanma's list from Discord. He took this Fire Aggro Zander to a second place finish in the TTS event, actually beating me in the semifinals, and I just really like the list. I think it's a really solid Fire Aggro Zander list to be aware of for Ascent, so I kind of want to put some more eyes on it because I do think this aggro list offers things that other aggro lists can't do. And it definitely is a little bit more, I think, intricate as well. So you're going to, it has been around since last format, so you might be already familiar for it. But if you're a little bit newer to GA and you're headed off to Ascent, or just the FTC meta in general, it's just good to know. So big shout out to Hanma, congrats on your second place finish. And also shout out to Luxeras Map for making all of those lists publicly available as well. We will have the Luxeras Map linked below because I actually didn't build the physical side deck. So if you want to go see his side deck, go check them out. They post all the tournament reports and stuff. So let's go right into the deck list. So, it's aggro, Spirit of Fire makes sense. We have the level 1 Zander. This is the only champion that we run in the main deck outside of the Spirit. You get to Glimpse 2, really nice effect for something that's aggro because you can pick your strategy essentially in this deck. We do mess around with prep counters and stuff, so getting a good balance of that is really important. Getting to put away some attacks if you already have enough on the bottom of the deck or something like that. Actually really handy that he has that Glimpse 2 effect. We run all 3 baubles, and I will briefly talk about the side here because he also runs all 3 trinkets. Now, this is something that our team has done as well in some FTC testing. Whenever you run a deck that doesn't need all of your material deck space and your sideboard kind of has a little bit of space too, this is a really cool concept that you can do because basically game 1, you're going to have a GCR in the main, and you're basically getting that guaranteed draw. And then after sideboard, you can take out the dead cards. If you're playing against water, you don't need these baubles. You can take out those dead cards and put in a secondary water hate card into the deck, which is really cool. And then just some other regalia if you have that in the sideboard as well. So you can really start to almost, pick on the color that you're playing against. And I just really like that concept. So we have Bauble of Abundance. This list isn't running GCR, so you just go for this if you really need that card draw. And the reason it's not running GCR is because this is actually the first deck profile I think that we're putting up with Grail. And it's not even the standard way that you would use Grail. This deck uses Grail to protect the Poisoned Dagger. With so much Regalia hate available in the meta right now, especially when you're playing against other aggro decks, basically the play is to bring out Grail, use Grail's effect, grab your Poison Dagger from the material deck, not show your opponent, put it underneath the Grail, and then you can, at their end phase, when you're ready to use Dagger on your next turn, pop Grail, banish it, bring out the Poison Dagger with Grail's effect. It will still rest it, but if you do it on your opponent's end phase, then you go to your turn and boom, you have your Poison Dagger awake. So it doesn't quicken the combo at all or anything like that, but it's basically just protecting your Poison Dagger so that when you are ready to use it, it's there. And I do think that is a very strong utility in this deck. Like I said though, not really usually how most decks are going to use Grail, but it is there. Also, another way that you could use Grail is we are playing Nullifying Lantern. So you do use cards that rely on you having fire-based element cards in your graveyard in this deck, but I think Grail and Lantern is in here if you're just facing against a deck that cares more, to be honest. There are a couple fire aggro decks right now that really rely on their fire element based graveyard, and you can still out-tempo them with a Lantern out, basically because you have more win cons in your deck that don't rely on fire cards in your graveyard than they do. So I think that's a really cool play there as well. We have the Furrock and Soul Knife. If you do bring Lantern out, just be aware that you can't do the cheat this into play effect, but you can still just materialize this. We use Blazing Throw, and this is a really cheeky way to bring this out for free on your turn if you're the class bonuses and element bonus, so if you're level 1 Zander, you can do this. And you just banish 3 fire cards from your graveyard, and you cheat this into play just on the main phase. So it's really cool to just be sitting there and just be like, okay, I'm going to banish 3, bring this out during my normal turn, and then I'm going to put 1 down and Blazing Throw you. And now I've done 4 damage to you for 2 cards from hand, and only using 1 of them. That's just crazy, honestly. We have smoke bombs. There's a lot of interceptors out right now. This is a really fantastic way to just be like, oh, you play defensive? Well, I'm just going to say, like, that doesn't matter, basically. If you use smoke bombs with to give a interceptor or a taunt stealth, you will get the draw card from smoke bombs as well, and then that unit won't be able to intercept or have taunt. So it basically will just negate their defensive play. So very, very strong card being ran by most aggro decks right now. And then we also have Assassin's Ripper. If you find yourself with a large hand of prep counters and stuff like that, or maybe you want to go for a big like Rending Flame swing and stuff like that, Assassin's Ripper is still a really, really solid pick. So this isn't using Blinding Orb or Orb of Choking Fumes or anything like that, but the utility that you get is really nice, and kind of the consistency that you get, because you're sacrificing up some of the material deck slots, but I think it is a really good idea. So let's go ahead and go on to the main deck. So everyone's favorite card, man. Gildas has went from $3 in the DOA format to like 15 plus now. So obviously a lot of people are finding this to be a very strong card, and for good reason. So this is your best bang for buck for getting damage on the board, honestly. If you can find a way to keep her balanced, you are going to give a really big threat to your opponent. So and then we have Gildas's best pet, the Woodland Squirrel. So if you go second, Gildas is a lot harder to balance with 8 cards in hand, but now all of a sudden if you play Squirrel, then you play Gildas, boom, you have 3 in your memory and 3 in your hand, and you're swinging 5 damage on your very first turn of the game. So it does leave you pretty open, like Squirrels is pretty easy to kill, and then you're basically like wasting a card from hand, but we run other buff like mechanics as well in the game, so Squirrels can easily be 2 damage instead of a 1 damage attacker, and for just being free, that's really the most important part of this deck. Now we actually get to I'll talk about this one first. We have one Stalwart Shieldmate. So I reached out to Hamna's testing partner and Hamna themselves, but I did this like 3 minutes before recording the video, so I just got whoever could talk to me first. And they basically said that this is a one-of because they just couldn't fit more into the deck. I get why this is in here. There are some units that you really want to protect. For example, Squirrels, right? Like if you play like 2 Squirrels down and a Shieldmate, now all of a sudden these Squirrels can't just be picked off by like a Lorraine with Sword of Seeking, right? And so I think this has a lot of utility in the deck, but they just basically said that they're not running more because of space. Here's a very interesting card though, and kind of why I wanted to highlight Hanema's profile, because the other Aggro Fire Zanders that we've been testing, that we've been seeing out there being played, don't always have this card in here. And having played against it myself in the top 4, I was aware of his list because they did open deck list for Top Cut, but I think if I wasn't aware of this, it could have really caught me by surprise and done some really devastating things. He still did use it against me, I think 2 out of 3 games, and even though I knew he had Gawain, it was still like hard to perfectly play around this, and it did do some damage. I do like that you can kind of like slow the game down, but in a different way than how like Control wants to slow the game down. Basically, you're not really like slowing the game down, but you're just like you're speeding up to resource deprivation. And aggro decks are always going to struggle with like the level 3 decks that get to the level 3, they get their big body health on the board. Like Crux is going to be 28 health, and then they start to get all their powerful cards online and everything. But if you can Gawain, especially if you can do it when someone's not expecting it, you can hit like the Dungeon Guide from their memory, or just like a powerful card in general. And if you have like an Arthur on board, this is still like 2 damage in. So even though you're going to sacrifice this card to take one of their cards, you can get rid of a Veiling, you can get rid of a lot of powerful stuff that's going to slow you down. And now they might not have the cards to level up, right? Like you are taking away something from their memory. If they put 2 down with no floating memory and they're trying to go to level 2 next turn, now they can't, right? Like this card actually has a crazy amount of utility, and I really, really liked it in the list. Definitely, if you do see yourself facing against an Aggro Zander, you're going to want to keep this card in mind, because I do think it's a very strong card, and you don't want to be caught by surprise from it. We've already mentioned him a couple times, but Arthur's in here. You can boost up your Gawains, your Squirrels. You run a lot of cheap allies. This is also probably your best turn 1, is to just, especially if you're going first turn of the game, play Arthur, use his effect, rest him, and give him immortality. He can still be bounced things. He can still be bounced by things like Disorienting Winds, Summon Gale, things like that. But most decks aren't going to have a way to really interact with this, and it can really set you up for some powerful turns. Now we have the other extremely strong card in the deck, Korhazi Courier. I mean, this, Gawain, Varukan Soul Knife, like, those are all the things that make me legitimately want to pick this deck for Ascent, and I'm not going to lie, I am kind of considering it at the moment. This card is just crazy strong. Hanma started 2 of these right away in 2 out of 3 of our games, and I gotta say, I'm pretty sure that's what won him the match. I couldn't really deal with these quickly enough, and just starting these is insane. Like, you just can't keep up with the like tempo that this is giving the Fire Zander players. So incredibly strong card. A really important ruling question for a lot of people that I've seen, like beginner and even intermediate people, is that Korhazi Courier's on-hit effect does have to actually deal damage. So if that damage gets prevented by any sort of way, you know, Valiant Breeze and stuff like that, do not draw a card. Do not do her effect. You will not get it. It has to deal damage. So just an important quick thing that I wanted to touch on. We have 4 Blazing Bowmen. So this is one of the cards that I said, you know, like bringing out Nullifying Lantern might not be the best idea unless you really need to, because Blazing Bowman is going to be your better than Blitzmage card if you are able to use this effect, but if not, it's a pretty feels bad card in your hand. So it can't be retaliated. This is a fantastic card to play if they have like an Ace and Protector or something up. You literally just play this, swing into the Ace and Protector, and you're just kill spelling on a stick their card, which is just fantastic. This is, you know, in DOA format, they were already playing Blitzmage, and this is pretty much just a better Blitzmage, so the deck just got a lot of upgrades. We got 4 Hasty Messenger, because it's a red aggro deck. I'm not going to spend too much time on this card. Every red aggro deck is basically playing that. We have 3 Clumsy Apprentice, again, you know, like just having like a Arthur turn 1 and then following it up with something like Clumsy, Gawain, Squirrel, another Clumsy or something like that, like, it's just crazy, honestly, and just can lead you to like a lot of really ridiculous things. Unlike some of the other lists that we maybe have posted or played in gameplay, you know, I don't think you need to run the 4 full of. I think the 3 count is fine here because you're not like hyper focused on getting fire cards into the drop, so kind of makes sense to see that in that count. We have 4 Mark the Targets. This is a fast 1 damage spell that you can do, like pop Poison Dagger in Recollection, use this, deal 2 damage before your turn really even begins, and then, you know, like you don't have to, you're cheating that reserve cost basically, like, and then it's giving you your prep counters, which are really important because the next card that we're going to get to, Planted Explosives, is also a fast. This is a skill, so is Mark the Target. Very important to know now that the Deer is such a prevalent card. And you can prepare 1 to make this deal 4 damage fast, or you can just normally play it to have it deal 2 damage fast. So depending on your hand, you know, like, it's pretty scary to see a Zander with a Curved Dagger on board just look at you and say pass with like 6 cards in hand, because you just know that next turn they're going to pop Dagger, mark Planted, deal like, what is that, 8 damage or something like that before their turn even really begins, and then pick up their cards, draw for turn, and go. You know, like, it can be really, really terrifying. So he also ran 4 Ignited Stab, which, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of prep counter cards, but these are still not bad cards even if you are just using their normal effect. You know, like, just Ignited Stab for 2, that's still a 1 cost 2 damage card. So I can see the viability of it. And then we have 2 Rending Flames. So this is an Assassin class bonus as well. Most of the time Warrior is using it. You're not filling up your drop too fast with fire element cards like the Lorraine list do and stuff, but this is definitely something that they have to be scared of. And like I said, if you go like Assassin's Ripper, remove a prep counter to make Assassin's Ripper 3, and then you play this, now you're doing 6 times 2 if you use the effect. So you can definitely get those cheeky big swings in, but it's a little less of your win con like other decks. Because of the way that this list plays with things like Planted Explosives and the Dagger and everything, that's what I mean by I think it has a little bit more versatility than just like Lorraine playing allies and Fiery Momentum and Rending Flames. You know, like, it can definitely get around like a Resolute stand and stuff like that a lot better than other aggro lists can. Then we just kind of have like the typical Fire Engine, 4 Creative Shock and 4 Tempered Steel for the Floating Memory, because you still need to get into level 1. And then 4 Cremation Ritual. Pretty typical fire stuff. That's just kind of Fire's engine usually. And then we have 2 Blazing Throw. So you can only use this once. We only have the 1 weapon. That's not true, actually. I guess you could use it with Assassin's Ripper. I've never just personally done that. But you're going to mainly probably be using this with Baruch and Soul Knife. So like I said earlier, you can either just materialize that if the game's going long enough and you don't have anything else to materialize. But most often, this is going to be the cheeky way to, like, you know, you can have 2 cards in hand and your opponent thinks they're pretty safe, and then you go, okay, well, banish 3 fire, bring out my dagger, and then Blazing Throw it. I believe he actually did that to me, and yeah, I wasn't counting on that kind of damage. Or I think that might have happened in a playtesting game with one of my teammates, and it just completely took me by surprise. So that's the list. Like I said, if you want to find the sideboard, you know, look in the Luxeras Map list. A really great resource to be looking at anyways. If you haven't checked out their website, you definitely should. But hopefully this gets you a little bit more Ascent ready or just FTC meta ready for your locals and all that stuff. Appreciate you guys stopping by for another video. Peace.